What up, guys? That Comic Awesome here, doing another review, doing Sideways #2, and if you haven't been reading this, shame on you. This is a fantastic series. It has depth, it can be a little lighthearted, it has some teenage angst in it. It is enjoyable to read, and the art I look at and I'm like, it's nothing to me like super special, but it really fits the tone of the book of like a teenage kind of, it has a teenage air around it, and I love it. I love this book. So this is only issue 2, so there's time to get on the bandwagon. But issue 1, you got introduced to Derek James, who got his powers to kind of open up portals through space when he was in Gotham during the events of Dark Knight's Metal #1, when the Mountain showed up. He fell through like a dimensional rift and then showed up 4 days later, and ever since has had these abilities, and he's also super strong. Not like, again, I would liken him, obviously, by his look to Spider-Man. He has kind of enhanced strength. He's not Superman strong, but he's strong, and he can not teleport, but he opens like rifts in space. But yeah, so that's kind of this. After he got his powers, he decided to take Sideways for a spin, doing what every teen of course wants to do, and that's be a YouTube star. So he starts to kind of record a video going through different portals and stuff like that. When he starts hearing this voice, it turns out to be this guardian of space-time or dimensional travel, Tempus Frugnot, I think, telling him that he pretty much has just like broken every like interdimensional law thought of, and pretty much he has to be punishable by death. So that's kind of where we pick up. And again, like, I really love the art. Like, it kind of, has this like light, like the inking, I think, is what really does it too, because you get lines, you get shading in the lines, and the coloring is spot on. My one gripe, and I had this about #1, is they don't fill out the page. Like, every page is like framed, and I don't know if that's like that way they can kind of throw these like almost like 90s style like splashes around or what, but that's my one gripe. Again, I'm kind of nitpicking at that. But so you have him, and again, he's kind of being like your typical teenager. This guy's pretty much like telling him he's not fit to have these powers. He has to pretty much die. And a typical teenager, he's like, oh, gosh, you sound like just like my mom. And he's like, you have no choice but to come with me. He's like, what does he say? The monitors were created to watch and observe as Tempest Fugginut. I must preserve the boundaries between dimensions, and I am now far more responsible than they ever were. Dimensional infractions are virtually non-existent, as we've just, pretty much the whole Dark Knight's Metal saga revolved around dimensional travel. Dimensional travel is so prevalent in comic books nowadays, so it's virtually non-existent. It's just very existent. The galaxy is in complete harmony, and so he tries to like teleport away, and he's like, my ability is to mend dimensions, so it pretty much registers your ability inert, and tell me please in the comments, he's like, my power is to mend and defend. What is that from? Was that from Reboot? Mend and defend, like that has to be Reboot, like the Guardian like code or whatever. But anyway, so as long as he's close to the Tempest, he can't teleport, so he has the brilliant idea of jumping and figuring, again, hey, when you're far enough away, then you can teleport. You gotta get this cool sideways panel of him trying to like rift and slow himself down. Eventually, he kind of teleports himself to a lake, and he's pretty beat up. He's like hitting the water at that speed because his power doesn't affect force, so he was still falling pretty hard. He's like, the water was no different than concrete. So he hurt his shoulder. He's pretty banged up. So he goes to kind of his friend Ernie, and she's like, who knocks anymore? And she opens the door, and it's like him knocking through the rift. I thought that was cool. So she pulls him through, and they get like a carber to the hospital instead of the Uber. Exactly 5 minutes later. That's how long it took. But then I like this scene, and I want to take you step by step through this scene. So I read this panel, and I thought it was funny, but then I like thought of it in more of a humorous way, where like this duck is like, man, this is a nice clean lake, none of that like black sludge around here, like, to mess up my feathers. And he's like, oh, it's behind me, isn't it? He's just like, he does that look like, oh, the sludge is right behind me. He got me. So essentially, one of Derek's rifts is still kind of like open, or it opens back up, and this black ooze, which is very venomous-esque to me, gets a duck and pretty much eats it, and it's kind of just like floating in the water. Meanwhile, he's at the hospital where his mom shows up. It turns out Ernie, being a good friend, calls his mom, and then you get the mom's side of kind of the origin story, where she was in Gotham with him when he fell through. So she pretty much searched the entire city. She's like, I saw people helping people, but no one was helping me. She was looking, all she wanted to find her son. And you get this really great moment. She's at this hospital, and this officer's like, ma'am, I don't want to give you hope, but there's somebody matching that description up on the 6th floor, and it turns out that it is her son. And I love this emotion. Again, look at the art. Like, you really see the emotion on her face and the shadowing of like a distressed woman. But she says, here, I may not have given birth to you, but you are my son. You're my only child. I love you, and I'll protect you always. And I love that too, the fact that, again, like, anyone who's like had to deal with adoption and stuff like that, it's like you try so hard to get a kid, to have a kid, and then like you're able, you try so hard to adopt, and then when you finally get one, like it's like the best thing ever, and you just want to hold, like, so it's like her emotions seem so real and very legitimate, and I thoroughly like that. And I think this kind of mother-son relationship is going to play a very important role in the coming story. Also, with the black sludge kind of coming through. Again, another probably further down the road, nice setup. Meanwhile, while they're at the hospital, there's a little bit of a commotion, and it turns out there's this woman who has super speed that is she was shot, but she was able to heal, and then she was detained. They're trying to detain her. The only thing I don't like is look how goofy these cops look. Like, they look like 20s, like British, like, oh my gosh, like we were like cops. So I was like, that was like the one part of the art that I was just kind of like, eh. But so then Derek has to kind of step up and, figure out how to get out of that situation. I love this. Like, I love it. It's a classic story. It's, it really makes you feel that, somebody who doesn't want to take responsibility is being forced to take responsibility. And I know that's a little bit of a classic, cliche Spider-Man type thing, with great power. But this book is doing that far better than even Amazing Spider-Man right now. But yeah, that's what I think. I like it. Subscribe over here, watch some more videos, hit me up in the comments, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you next time.